Alright, I'm going to go over doing some fret work here. I have to fret this neck, so its side dots are in. There you go. So I'm going to do some fret work. The fingerboard radius, you know, Strats, and you have Ibanez and Gibsons, and everything's a little different. So basically, if you take a circle and you measure out from the center out 12 inches and you make a complete circle, that's a part of that. You take a chunk of that off and that's your radius. So I make these blocks, my own radius blocks. This is a 12. I machine them. You can see the mill marks in there. I might make them as I need them. Like I make everything, 14, 17, 16, whatever I need. Now in this case, fingerboard was already done, so I don't want to mess with it. And I made sure it was perfectly straight when I put it on. I'll go over it, but I'm not going to be sanding. I'll just go over the process, but I'm not going to do anything to this fingerboard. It doesn't really need it. I've already done it. So, but in that case, I have my radius blocks. Now, if the neck is, if you glued the neck on, I made this long block. I just made this on my machine. It's a piece of mahogany. It's smooth here. I put that over the joiner, make it nice and straight. Run it through the sander, round these edges on my edge sander. You don't want a sharp edge. We use a long block like this, at least I do, only when the neck is really bad, and it's better to use the block. I use this paper I was explaining before. It's a double stick paper, and then you just put it on there, and then you cut it. Well, I'll just do it real quick. All right, so you want it to be dead on even. So I got a square edge up there and a square edge there. So I'm going to use the squares I already have. Again, you don't want any hangover on this stuff, because if you do, you're going to have problems with your fret work. And I'll flip this over and then use a nice sharp blade. I'm going to cut it right squared there. Okay? Same thing over here. Let's cut it right, because you don't want it hanging over at all. There you go. So it's like there's nothing hanging over, but I do have to trim it up a little bit over here, because again, when you're doing video, it's hard to think sometimes, because you're more concerned about what's going on. So there, I have that. So on normally I put 80 or 120 on here. You got to be careful if you're dealing with ebony. Some of the harder woods, if you get scratches in there, like 80 scratches, 80 grit, you know, they're hard to get out. So you have to gradually work your way up. In this case, I got 120, 180, 220, and 320. So that way I have my combination. This is a radius gauge. This is going to be a 12-inch radius, which is 305 millimeters. So we use this to check the radius to make sure. But I had already done this, so I know it's dead on the money. Plus it came this way. I don't know if you can see this or not, but you know, this follows it here. The other thing you want to do is you want to tighten the truss rod so that the neck's straight. These two, sometimes you have these two-way rods, and they you'll get a rattle noise. That means it's neutral. The neutral position is dead center. So you don't want that neutral position, or you get that rattling noise. You don't. Nobody wants that rattling noise. So now we're going to check it. I use my eye, and you want to get it straight. Okay, got a straight edge. This has to be tightened up just a tiny little bit. So I'm going to tighten it a little bit. Whoops. And then a little bit more. And then we'll check it with the straight edge, make sure it's good. Okay. So this neck is very straight, but you can't see it in the video, but basically I'm going to look here for light. Put it up so you can see through, see if there's any light underneath, and you can find all your high and low spots, if there's any. So this has a little bit of it's a little overboard in the middle. Just going to back it off just a tiny little bit. And that's good. Now, because I sanded it before, I'm not really going to worry about it. But in the first case, I would use, if it was a brand new fingerboard, the way I make fingerboards, they're machine perfect. So a lot of this hassle I don't deal with. If I was doing a refret and I pulled the frets out and there was a hump in the neck or something, there's a couple ways that, you know, you can check it. If you just put some pencil on there. If I use my, on this case, I'm just going to show you real quick, but on this one I would just, again, you're not using any pressure. You got to follow the radius with your hand if you're going to do it with this long block. This is only to get like a really bad area out. Sometimes the neck will have a twist or it'll be uneven, and the only way to repair that model is to sand out the bad areas. So on this one, so I use a long block because not everybody uses long blocks. Some people use short blocks. I prefer a super long block when I'm doing the beginning work. Alright, so I can see all my pencils gone. Like I said, I'd already done this, but then if I have my 12 here, what I would do is I would put my my sandpaper on there. Now you could stick it on any way you want, but I use this round stuff, which works fine for me. And then it just sticks right on. And then I roll it back. And now in this case, I'm just going to work a little bit in each area. Like I said, I'd already done it. This is really, really careful, because if you're off even this way a little bit, you wind up with the fingerboard radius will be off center. And not the end of the world, but it's not very professional. So you got to hold this dead center. I mean, I had a, oh, wait a second. I mean, I actually made this other jig, which I will go grab. Okay, it's not, I have to change the paper, it's a little dirty, but you get the point. I machined this. So I can just take this neck, put this paper on there, just hold the neck as long as it's square. I hope you can see this. And then I can move it back and forth. But you, again, in the position I'm in is not a good position, but you want to make sure that you're not